Welcome back, everybody. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. I am excited as usual to be joined by our fabulous head coach, Kate, especially because today is a topic that I know that she can add some extra insight into. And the topic is it really possible to make six figures as a copywriter?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
thanks. We'll see you at the next episode.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. We will dig into it a little bit more than that. But yeah, short answer. Yeah, it's absolutely 100% possible. Kate, why do you think people question that so much?
Ooh, good question. I think the biggest thing is because so many other writing careers aren't paid well. If journalism, editorial writing, fiction, writing a novel, it's great prestige and, amazing when people can get published, but, it just doesn't pay the bills, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, to me, I think that's why people are most shocked. And I think there's also a misunderstanding too of what copywriting is, which we've talked about already, but because it helps businesses make money, it is paid well. But I think so many people who don't know about it think, oh, blog writing or, other types of editorial writing, why would you get paid well for that? Like anyone can do that, right? Anyone can write some words on a page and call it a day.
Yeah. And yes, anyone can write words on a page and call it a day. But copywriting, if you guys have been listening for a while, and as Kate and I know, and as students know, it's a very specialized type of writing, and it requires training and practice. The thing is that I know I heard it when I was growing up, when you were growing up. I heard it when I was growing up. And I grew up before you did. So there.
So maybe you did hear it when I was growing up too.
And I know that you heard it, and I know that it's really common because we hear it a lot from our students as well, is that idea that, yeah, if you want to be a writer, you can't make money. So you have to be comfortable with the idea of either sacrificing yourself for art or working a day job and writing in the evenings. And I think to your point, it's that idea of something you've always wanted, but had been told again and again that was impossible, to actually find out that it's possible. You can use these skills that you have as a writer, and you can be paid well for them because it's so valuable to companies and organizations. I've been doing a lot of podcast interviews lately, and I talk to entrepreneurs every other day, and they will say things like, we will talk about it and we'll agree that you can have the best product in the world, but if the messaging is cruddy, it's not going to sell. Whereas you could have literally a white page with black text on it, no pictures of anything, but if the messaging is really good, you'll be able to sell or persuade people to take an action or something along those lines. Entrepreneurs understand how important copy is. Businesses understand it, and it's becoming more and more understood. People are valuing good marketing more than ever before, and people are valuing the messaging that has to be a part of it. And I think too, part of the problem is that people, if they have dabbled a little bit in writing, they have seen how poorly some industries get paid, especially like content writers as a whole. And we have a whole other episode about content versus copy. So if you're curious, check that out. But there's some content writers that are getting paid like 10 cents a word. So no kidding, it seems impossible to actually be able to make six figures as a copywriter.
Without burning out too.
Yeah, exactly. But like, let's say, and I'm opening up my phone calculator, but if you want to hit $100,000 a year, and let's say you do sales pages, and you can do any kinds of projects and so many different kinds of projects too, but let's say you do sales pages for $1,500 a piece. And then, so over the course of a year, sales pages for $1,500 a piece, which probably a little bit of a discount considering they're such important pieces, but let's be real conservative and say $1,600 a piece. Excuse me, $1,500 a piece. Over the course of a year, you need to do 66 of them, which, that sounds like a lot. Divided by 12, that's 5. Over the course of a month, you would have to write 5 and a half, 5.5 repeating. So one or a couple of those
little
months
more
you have to
than
write 6.
Yeah.
But out of the course of an entire month, you don't have to be like working your fingers to the bone, writing a blog post and working every single moment of the day. You're writing 5, maybe 6 sales pages a month, and that gets you to 6 figures.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many ways to go about that with the math. I mean, it's doable in many places too. I think one of the things people get very hung up on pricing as copywriters, and there's no one size fits all. And so is it possible to hit 6 figures? Yes. And that goes for anyone, anywhere. But some of the factors that are going to contribute to kind of how you get there is, yes, your location potentially. I always use the example of where I am in a small town in North Carolina is going to behave very different than someplace in New York City, just inevitably cost of living. Of course, if you're working with clients from all over, that might not come into play as much. But the other big factor is your experience level. As you gain more and more experience, you're going to be able to charge more and more. And to your point, that sales page that was $1,500, maybe it becomes $2,000, maybe it becomes $2,500, maybe it becomes $5,000, whatever it becomes. And you're going to get faster too.
Still putting out quality work.
Yes.
But just being able to do that quality work a bit faster. Yeah.
And potentially being able to take on more projects. I know I've found I can take on, more clients than just 1 or 2 because I can manage that workload as time goes on. And then the other piece though, too, is whether you're full-time, part-time, doing it as a side hustle, how you're going to hit that mark is going to vary if you're working part-time versus full-time versus side hustle. As a side hustle, could you hit 6 figures? Absolutely. But I don't know how much side hustling you want to do.
That's a lot of work. That is,
a lot of work.
You're only working nights and weekends and you still want to have a life.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So you gotta weigh what are your priorities? What are your goals? How does hitting that number come into play? Is it the most important aspect? It might not be. It might spending more time with your family might be more important. So you might say, okay, I can still make, $75,000 a year, but have a little bit more time to spend with family and friends and whatnot. So lots of variables to consider when hitting that number.
Yeah, that's a great point. Your desired income level is very personal for you. It does depend on what you want your lifestyle to be, but also what expenses you have, a million different factors. Okay, not a million, but a lot of different factors. How much disposable income you want to have. But the nice thing about a career like copywriting is that you can come up with your number and then you can hit it and then you can say, you know what? Do I want to try for a little more, or do I want a little bit, or was I busy? And you know what? I feel like I want actually to work a little bit less, and I'd be comfortable making a little bit less income as well. You can dial it up or dial it down as needed. If you have a vacation someday when we get to vacation again, if you have a vacation coming up and you want to get in more work, if you have a vacation in 3 or 4 months and you want to get in more work now so that you can take that time off, then you can dial that up. Or if you want to be saving up for a vacation, you can dial it up or dial it down. If stuff is getting busy at home, kids are crazy, then you can dial it down. But dial it up and dial it down by adjusting the number of pitches that you are sending out and the work that you are taking on. But yeah, that's a really great point. Is 6 figures possible? Yeah, absolutely. But you may not find that you even care enough to hit 6 figures. You might hit that goal and be like, that was amazing. But I don't actually want to work a full time. I actually kind of want to work closer to part-time. And that number gives you an income that you're perfectly happy with. So it's a very personal choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think on the other hand too, there's folks that maybe think, well, if I hit 6 figures, how high can I go? How high in the 6 figures? And I think there is a certain kind of limit just based on how much work you can do, how much you can realistically charge your clients. If your goal is to hit $500,000, you're going to have to come up with a different strategy than just writing copy. You're going to need, are you going to create an agency? Are you going to offer, consulting services that supplement the copywriting work you're doing, whatever it is. But to hit a number like that, yeah, you're going to need to evolve kind of the business, which,
Yes.
hey, if you want down the line, absolutely.
Go for it. Yeah. I was just talking with one of our students the other day who said that her end goal, eventually she would like to get to that agency place. And that's great. Because yes, as a service provider doing the work for them, 6 figures, totally possible. 7 figures, probably not. You would have to be charging way more than what a lot of people are willing to pay in order to make $1 million as a copywriter. However, as Kate was saying, as an agency owner or consulting, if a company brings you in and you teach all their people how to write copy, especially with bigger corporations, you can charge a lot more for that. But strictly speaking, if you are being a service provider, 6 figures is probably, at least now in the current economic climate, 6 figures and a little bit above that, not into 7 figures.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the one thing to do is really set your first goal, that attainable goal. If you've just started out, okay, what's my number that I want to hit? And then once you hit that, reassess that goal and come up with your next goal. And is it hitting 6 figures? Is it building an agency? Whatever it is, but writing your goals and writing the steps you need to take to achieve them. So if your end goal and you're just starting out, yes, I want to create an agency, great, but build the goals between that. You don't go from 0 to 60 overnight. So
or 100K as the case.
Yeah. As it were. Yeah. So yeah, really actually, write them down. And review your goals, whether it's on a quarterly basis, annually, for sure. And when you're starting out, you might be reviewing your goals a little bit more often than someone who's been doing it for a while. But make sure you're setting them and taking the steps you need to take to eventually get there. Because otherwise, you're not going to get there if you don't have the steps in between.
Yeah. Well, and setting those goals too, it can help propel you to the next goals.
Yep.
If your goal is like 6 figures and you're slogging along to get, first of all, too, you're not going to know that you've hit 6 figures until you get close to the end of the year. And that's putting in a lot of time. Whereas if you start out with like my first goal to land my first client, which by the way, is a big win in and of itself. And we celebrate that every day in our Facebook group. So first goal to get your first client. Then maybe your next goal is to have your first $1,000 month, your first 4-figure month. And then maybe your next goal is to have depends on you, maybe you're like, all right, I did 1,000. I'm going to try for 2,000 next. Or maybe you're like, ooh, okay, I'm really going to push myself. I'm going to try for a $5,000 month. And then once you hit that $5,000 month, are you trying for, 7, 8? Because then as you attain each of these goals, the next one becomes so much more possible. So sitting here and going, okay, I'm not making any money as a copywriter, but eventually I want to make $120,000. So I want to make $10,000 a month. That's a stretch that's way too big for most people to make. So if you're having trouble wrapping your mind around that, it's not your fault. It's way too big of a stretch for most people to be able to get to. But if you can say, all right, I got my first client and that was a $400 or $500 project. Okay, well, then my next goal is 1,000. And then you hit that and you go, all right, I can see myself scaling. So when you get to the point where you're like, I just had a $10,000 month, it felt possible getting there and it feels possible to continue to do it.
Yeah, that's why people talk about SMART goals, which I know it's a fun acronym for it, but you want it to be specific. So creating an agency is not very specific. Hitting a $4,000 month or whatever number is specific and it's measurable. That's the M in SMART. And then attainable. And I'm going to be honest, I forgot the R in the T.
I was just going to say, I always forget the R. I wonder if Kate's going to, I think it's something like reasonable or something like that. I want to say that it is, which although that would also be attainable.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
I should have come prepped with my analogy. The first part I feel like was the important part. Specific, measurable, attainable,
really awesome. And then T for terrific. There you go. No, but to your point, I mean, it is those first part that is the most important thing. Oh, go ahead.
I remember the T. Still don't know the R. T though, time based. You want to put a, so if it's Q1, I want to hit this by Q1 or whatever it is, so that you're not just pushing out your goal and pushing out your goal and pushing out. And that goes for any, smaller goals and the tasks that you're going to do to get to that larger goal as well. Mm-hmm. So putting it in time, relevant.
And we're copywriters. We work well with deadlines. So this is a deadline you have to give yourself. I'm going to get to my first $1,000 month by January or whatever. And then you do the work that you need to do, go through the steps that we give you, take that action, and you'll get there.
So the R is relevant, which I think goes back to our point of maybe you don't want to hit six figures. So why make your goal hitting $15,000 months if that's not relevant to the lifestyle that you want and to your larger goals and what success means for you? So if it's not relevant, don't do it just because you feel like, oh, I have to make more and more and more. And I feel like there is somewhat of that culture of like, I've got to always be increasing, but you don't. If you're happy, making 5, 8, whatever the number is, awesome.
Yeah. Then live that life and enjoy your life. There's no need to burn yourself out to hit $150,000, $160,000 a year when you would be much happier with less and living a better life, spending more time with your family and your friends. Yes, I agree. And I want to say too, is that it is possible to hit six figures as both the freelancer and being on staff. I will say though, or I should say, we will say, it will take longer to get to six figures on staff. Whenever anybody else is controlling your income and controlling your salary, it's going to take you longer to achieve your goals. And also you're going to be a lot more limited by the location of the company that you work for. If the company that you work for is in Manhattan, you'll be able to get to six figures a lot faster than if the location of the company you work for is in Des Moines. If you're on staff, you might be able to get to six, or you might find it easier to get to six figures working as a copywriter during the day and then taking some freelance work in the evening, $80,000 worth of copywriting on staff work and $20,000 worth of freelance, or however you break that up. But that is something, as we're talking about this is something we want to make sure to mention, that on staff versus freelance does have that difference. Because when you're on staff, which then we've both been on staff for various companies and have loved it. But there are different considerations when it comes to who is in charge of how much you make. When you're a freelancer, you are so much more in charge of how much you make. Whereas when you're working for a company, the company is largely in charge of how much you make.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to think about too is we're talking just income, the number that you're bringing in from clients. So that's not taking into account if you're on staff and if you get healthcare and if that has a significant value to you, or if you value having, paid time off, or if you like controlling it as a freelancer, being able to, like you said, ramp up the work when you need to, or ramp it down, or, just taking time off, or taking your computer with you on vacation, whatever it is. There's so many elements to what makes up a dollar value. And so I think when you think six figures, it's also smart to think of everything else outside of that might matter to you. And considering the tax implications, as a freelancer, you're hitting six figures, and it is easier because you're getting paid more, because you do have greater tax implications, which isn't to say that you're making less per se. Like you said, you do have greater control over the clients you're taking on, the amount you're charging. And so you do have more control over the amount that you end up bringing in, which you can then factor into all of those other things like paying taxes. And if you have to cover your healthcare and all of those sorts of things. Yeah.
And to be clear, you are paying taxes no matter what. If you are on staff, you're paying taxes. It's just been taken out before you get that paycheck. When you are working as a freelancer, you are taking that money out for your taxes after you get that check from your client. So you're not you're not paying taxes when you're on staff, and then all of a sudden you are paying taxes when you're freelance. That's not how it works. You see, sometimes it feels like you're not paying taxes because it's already taken out by the time you get your paycheck when you're on staff. So you are still paying taxes in both. And yeah, we should say too, that when we say 6 figures, we're talking about gross income. So before taxes taken out, and is it possible to hit 6 figures after tax taken out? Probably.
Absolutely,
great.
yeah.
Give it a shot. Let us know. Yeah, exactly. But so that's always something to kind of keep in mind as well. You know, you always want to keep your finances in mind. But yeah, there are a lot of different factors that can go into it, a lot of different things that you can play with. And throughout your career, you can be a freelancer, you can be on staff, you can be a contractor, you can be a combination of the 3. You can live in Des Moines, you can live in Bali. It's really up to you what you want your career to look like. But what we really want to make sure that you take away from this is you can feel free to dream big. You can be a writer, a copywriter, and make a great income. It's 100% possible.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is just, you need to have that training.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing that's going to prevent you from earning as much as possible, or as much as, realistically possible with the amount that you can take on, is not being able to write. That's literally the only thing, or I shouldn't say not being able to write, but not having the skills and the training in copywriting to be able to charge clients what you can charge, and, getting those repeat clients because you've done great work. So as long as you're learning and getting the skills you need, then dream real big.
Yeah, you do have to know how to write copy to get paid to write copy. I can make a mean grilled cheese sandwich, but no one is going to pay me 6 figures to be an executive chef because I don't know how to be an executive chef, which is tantamount to like, I know how to put together a good sentence, but I don't know. I do. Someone knowing how to put together a good sentence, but someone at the same time not knowing all of the strategies and techniques and myriad of different elements that go into writing copy. Yeah, it's a great point, Kate. That's a great point. So yeah, dream big, guys. The opportunities are plentiful, and you've heard us say it before, and we guarantee we'll say it again. There are so many more opportunities out there for copywriters than there are skilled copywriters to meet those opportunities. So keep dreaming 100%. Big and keep working. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for joining us for another episode, and be sure to catch us for the next one. And of course, too, by the way, if you have questions that you want to have answered on an episode of the podcast, or maybe you're watching it on YouTube, be sure to send it in to us. You can send them in through our website at filthyrichwriter.com, or follow us on Instagram and shoot us a message there. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. Make sure you don't miss any tips, tools, or tactics for copywriters by clicking subscribe right now. And of course, you can always find us over at filthyrichwriter.com. We'll see you next time.